You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's go there.
Okay. I sense it, but I wouldn't. Well, I would be then.
No, it's just, yeah.
You guys all set? We good here? You guys are all standing up. We'll start by calling the meeting to order. Do the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jasmine, will you please do a roll call?
Sandrowski.
Present.
Charlie Fisher.
Present.
Ken Stevens.
Present.
Clayton Haugen.
Present.
Carly Davis.
All right. So we're all present. That's great. Also, there's a lead on us getting an alternate sometime soon. So
February, they'd be making.
yeah, they did some interviews, I believe.
Yep.
So that's good.
Yeah, about 5 of them, I think.
Oh yeah.
Three of them, 5
Okay.
interviews for this.
For the alternate, and you're going to get reappointed, huh?
I put in for it.
Yeah.
I interviewed.
Well, we all recommend. Okay.
But you left.
So we've got 3 continued applications and 2 public hearings on the agenda. So the first one is Hershwitz. You can come on up if you want. The first thing we need to do is just make sure we're all on the same page about where this one is at. And we need to type it for seeker, and then we can open the public hearing. So, Mr. Hershkowitz, did you have anything you want to add since our last meeting on this? Okay, great. So for everyone else, just a quick summary. The applicant owns property on 2 separate properties on 2 different sides of the road. They live in one house, the house across the street they want to sell, but they built a garage on the property of the house across the street, which they want to adjust the lot line such that the garage is part of the property where the house that they reside in is located. So they want to add the garage onto the property. This came to us because both properties are pre-existing non-conforming lots because they're too small for the zoning. It looked like there was also going to be an issue with setbacks and the driveway kind of right of way. That's largely been dealt with some edited maps. So that's it. So we need to type this seeker. We don't need the paper because it's a type. I looked up, I believe it's a type 2 action because it's just a lot line adjustment or variance granted. So that's type 2 action. So I'll move that we type this as type 2. And a second for that.
Second.
All in favor? We're supposed to do a roll call, I think, to be safe on seeker. So will you please do a roll call on that?
Sandrowski.
Yes.
Mr. Fisher.
Yeah.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Haugen.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Okay, great. So it's officially categorized as a type 2 action. We sent out notice in the paper and then also to neighbors within whatever it is, 500 feet, to if they had any comments for us. So if it's okay with all of you guys, I'd like to open that public hearing, which I think we just declare open. Is there anyone here? What's that? Oh, I'd like to move to open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Charlie got the second. All in favor? Aye. All right, great. Public hearing is open. Is there anyone here that would like to comment on this application? Going once, going twice. Okay, there's no one here. Did we receive any written correspondence?
No.
Okay, so we received no comments. If the board's okay with it, I'd like to close this public hearing, so,
I'll second it.
okay, I move and Charlie seconds. All in favor? Okay. So we have a couple options. We can go through and try to make a decision. We haven't really talked about this one as a board in a lot of detail because we were waiting on information, which I think we should do. So if everyone on the board is okay with that, let's go ahead and do that. I did not write anything ahead. Okay, so as everyone on the board knows, the first thing we need to do is just go through these 5 questions that have been outlined by the state about whether or not it's appropriate to grant a variance. So the first question is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. So in this case, the area variance, what we're looking at technically is just allowing the nonconformity to kind of persist. But we're also looking at the specific way that we're allowing the nonconformity to persist. So in this case, both lots would remain nonconforming, or we'd be changing the configuration. So whether that change would be undesirable. Okay, you got something to say?
No, I don't see change happening there as far as characteristics of the environment or area. It's still a garage across the road that they currently use, so it has no impact. It's an invisible line, so there's no change.
Charlie?
I agree with Clayton.
Harley?
Yeah.
Ken?
Agree.
Okay, well, I guess I felt a little bit like it might be undesirable. I think actually kind of in the similar reason as you guys, it's like the use doesn't change, but we are creating a situation. Like we're kind of, right now we have an informal situation and we're like formalizing it. It won't change the day to day, but it does potentially change, you know, if the properties change hands, we're just formalizing something that's abnormal. It's not typical. But if everyone else feels like there's no negative impact, I don't have a strong feeling on that. Percolating any ideas?
No, I appreciate the sentiment. I
think I
agree.
see where you're going with that.
I mean, it's not like super concrete in my mind. It's just that we've kind of got this informal situation that was made possible by the applicant's ownership of both parcels. And if the lot lines get changed, you're kind of like locking in the situation in the future, which is, you know, like typically you wouldn't have this configuration where you've got an across the
There's a
street.
concern of it potentially being followed by other applicants in the future with setting precedents.
I mean, I don't know. We're not approving the actual change.
Right.
So we're just like, what we're saying is we're okay with continuing the nonconformity, but in a new way. So like, we're not bringing either lot into more, it's like we're bringing one lot closer to conformity by making it bigger, but the way that we're making it bigger is like also making it stranger. And then the other lot, we're making less conforming, or would be made less conforming in terms of area, by being made smaller. So that's, I guess, the thinking is like,
I understand. It's two negatives trying to make a positive, or two positives trying to make a negative.
it's like neither lot gets better from the perspective of the town.
Right, right. But they're non-conforming right now, they remain non-conforming,
Right.
even with the change.
But do they become more or less non-conforming? Sort
One
of.
gets less non-conforming, one becomes more non-conforming.
Right, it becomes more closer to conformity in terms of size.
But still non-conforming.
But I think what I'm saying is like, it also becomes, like, sometimes you'll see a situation where you have two adjacent lots that are both non-conforming and they're on the same side of the street, right? And you want to move the line. And it's like, well, nothing changes except the line. But in this case, you're adding a garage on the other side of the street, which is like not desirable for the town.
I'm reading, I understand what you're saying, and it's good to think these things out. But I'm reading the question maybe narrower and reading it as, does the character of the neighborhood change detrimentally? And I don't see that for the reasons I think.
Based on the question, yeah, I agree with that. I understand what you're saying. You know, it's not as simple as just moving the lot line. It could impact the future of both properties. Viability of transfer, yes,
Right.
in the future. But environmentally, I still don't think that's any negative in that.
Okay. Everyone on board with that? Okay, so for the finding, we want to say, both lots are currently non-conforming because their size is less than is required in the zone. Adjusting the lot line will not increase the net nonconformance, to strained nonconformance of the parcels. While the use of having a garage across the street from a residence is uncommon, it is already existing, and adjusting the lot line will not make the existing use any more detrimental to the neighborhood than current condition. That sound okay? Okay, so finding both lots are currently not conforming because their size is less than is required in the zone. Adjusting the lot line will not increase the net nonconformance of the parcels. While the use of having a garage across the street from a residence is uncommon, it is already existing, and adjusting the lot line will not make the existing use any more detrimental than the current condition. Okay. Question 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
I would say no. I would say yes.
What method do you see?
The parcels could simply be joined, which would provide a garage to the the house that exists, let's just think about it. If there were one parcel, would there be any limitation to using the garage
No.
for the existing home?
If you join the two, you can't sell that,
You have two houses on one lot.
Yeah.
yeah, you can't.
I understand that, and I'm not suggesting that I'm not gonna approve the variance, but answering this specific question. Don't know that it's our job to maximize the owner's.
No, it's not. Specifically is not our
Profit,
job.
so to speak.
Right.
Well, what do you?
I don't know, I'm just trying to think it through. I understand the objective here is to sell one parcel, which could be done.
Yeah, the applicant's objective, I think if we said like, well, what is the benefit? I think the benefit that the applicant seeks is to sell the parcel across the street, but also retain use of the garage. Because they could sell it with the garage on it without doing anything with us or the planning board. So the goal that the benefit that the applicant is seeking is retention of the use of the garage while divesting themselves of the parcel across the street. But I think I agree with you that there are other.
So
I mean-
I can't tell you what they are exactly. I mean, I'm sure that the applicants explored every option they would have besides taking the house and the garage and making it one piece of property, and then still have another house and garage available for sale. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it depends again how you define the benefit, but if the benefit is use of the garage, one way you could achieve it is like not doing anything. Right, like it's there. If the benefit is just the use of the garage, then the status
Right.
quo affords that benefit, right?
Well,
But if the benefit is sale of the property plus retention of the garage, then yeah, like maybe there's something that
But
could be done
that's-
with.
that's what
deeds.
the applicant said, is they want to do this division of property for the potential sale of the other property.
Mhm, right,
So that means that's their goal.
right, it's both together.
Yes, it's together.
But just to play devil's advocate here, I won't belabor the point, but, wouldn't it be possible to sell the other property with a a deeded access to the garage?
Or a lease built in.
I suppose, yeah, that is an option for sure.
It would seem that would be possible. It would decrease the value of the property to be sold, probably. But I don't see, I mean, if the question is, is it feasible? And maybe somebody, Charlie, maybe you would know from your real estate experience or somebody else, whether or not such a situation is in current climate not even feasible.
If I was buying a piece of property. Does the house have a garage on it, the one you want, the back house?
It doesn't.
So we can't consider the economic side of things.
No,
I mean, you could certainly say, well, there's two parcels currently. The owner could write a lease from themselves to themselves, leasing the garage for the next 100 years. And they could sell the parcel with a valid lease. I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with that. So
I mean, like that's how apartment buildings and it's like the lease is separate from the ownership and the lease is transferable with ownership. I think like I can see that from like a real estate perspective, that might not be desirable. But in terms of whether there are.
I think it's not the value now. If you have a 100-year lease on something,
Sure.
somebody wants to buy it.
But we're not allowed to think about that.
new car with used tires.
What's that?
It's a new car with used tires.
Yeah. Harley, you got any thoughts on this?
Not really.
All right, let's go to the next question. Since we don't have consensus on this one, let's go to the next one and see. We don't have to go in order. So whether the requested area variance is substantial. And then again, like substantiality can be just like the sheer magnitude of the variance, or it could be like whether it's meaningful in context, so it could be in magnitude small, but be meaningful in context.
I would say no.
You'd say no.
I agree. In the grand scheme of things, it's not.
I'm the dissenter today. I think I would say like the variance on the nonconformity of the bulk lot size is not substantial to me because it's like on net, it's 0. But I do think the specifics of this variance to me make it substantial because you're saying like, we're going to create a parcel that's now on 2 sides of the town road. We're allowing that, which is like something that the town in its other areas of zoning code is like at pains to not do. And there's like things like natural subdivisions that make it very easy to remedy those situations because the town does not desire them.
There's other properties that have property on both sides, like one has a, I think there's one up there.
Oh, it's very common, but it's not common to
Holy Road.
create them.
Holy Road's got the garage on one side, house is on the other side.
I'm not saying that it
We
does-
approved years ago,
As what? As a to make a new lot,
thought that you could have the garage on one side of the road, not the.
but it was already one parcel. Like the parcel was already on both sides.
Yeah, I'm not sure about, I don't remember that part.
Would
It
that,
was 2 parcels, it probably was 1 partial.
Yeah.
With road split it.
Right. That's common.
would that still be a concern? The properties, let's say, we're now going to be conforming.
I think I still wouldn't love it personally. For the reason that like you're not supposed like in the subdivision rules, for example, like you're not can't create lots that span roads in this way. Like you just wouldn't allow it. It wouldn't get approved. And it's like it violates our lot design standards by formalizing it. Like we're not formalizing it, but we would be saying this version of
This still has to go in
Non-conforming.
front of
Planning
the
board.
planning, right? So, right, so
right, but we're the first step saying like this version of varying the code. Then they would have to say it doesn't meet our design standards and blah, blah, blah. Which they could say no. But for us, it's like, is this version of non-conformity? Sorry, I'm having computer issues here. Okay, acceptable this board.
saying. Our division of the property by a road. But usual.
Right, it's like, yeah, like in the planning board, a lot they'll see like it's situations like you guys are referencing where you have a parcel that's on 2 sides and they have a special way of fixing that called natural subdivisions, which like bypasses a lot of the hearings and review. And the reason for that is specifically because the town's saying, yeah, we don't like this situation where you have a parcel on 2 sides. But of course, my computer is now not letting me see the screen. I don't know. Did that persuade any of you? I don't want to. I don't want to beat a dead horse.
I appreciate the thoughtfulness. I do, and it's a closer question because of what you raised. But net, I would still say that not substantial because of the status quo, the way the configuration is currently.
Mhm.
And as we discussed earlier, an option would be to do a 100-year lease.
Right.
But on the day-to-day way in which people live in the town, that does not seem like it would make the town any better or worse. I don't think so.
I don't know if this necessarily would constitute going against the comprehensive plan and zoning You know what I mean? If we did okay it, so I don't see it still, that's a major issue that we have to contend with. I think it's more of an issue that you brought up on the planning board's level that'll be addressed if necessary. So having said that, percentage, I don't see that as being significant.
Okay. Harley, Charlie, Harley.
I don't think it's the deficit.
Okay. Also, if I can get my computer to work, we will write that, but I can do it on my phone, but it's less elegant. This is a new problem. Okay, I'm gonna check no on my phone. Oh, you got it? Do you have that?
Well, I don't have the form. So if you're welcome
It
to
should be,
use
it's in the folder. Yeah, can I?
Is it in the
Are you
folder?
I just put. I didn't go share it yet. Hold on. Sorry about this, everybody.
Partner goes out on a weekly basis and we can't even do anything.
Tell the town he needs a new computer, the ZBA work.
No, I don't need that. The
iPads.
tablets, yeah.
Do you have a laptop at your desk?
No, there's a laptop.
No, they are not
What
there.
happened?
They do not let me log into them, so I sent them back to Kate.
Oh, okay. Okay,
No,
whether,
they don't.
sorry, whether it's substantial, so we're saying. Sorry. Last. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Ken. Okay, so we're saying no, and we're saying the reasons are and someone who holds the view more strong than I do, say it in a concise way, what the finding would be.
There you go, Clayton.
Yeah.
Or Ken, or
Yeah,
hardly
Clayton
anybody.
did it.
Okay, so the proposed change does not impact the total amount of non-conformity relative to lot size, to minimum lot size in the zone. While the proposed lot line will create a parcel that is on two sides of a town road. The board does not view this as substantial because it's really because the use already exists.
Great, exactly. That's been in existence for everyone's.
Okay.
Just kind of related, I don't know if this came up before, but it's simply a garage, right? This isn't accessory housing.
It's just a garage.
It's just a garage.
No heat, no water.
Okay. Next question is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I don't think so. It's already there, that everything, so. You're not changing what it looks like in the area.
Clayton?
Not at all. Once again, it's an invisible line that we're moving.
If anything, it's gonna help, because if we deny it and it gets denied to planning board, then we'll have to come back to get a variance to put a garage on a non-conforming lot. Which will add another building to the area.
Ken?
No change.
I agree with everyone on this one. Won't be just a. Right, so should we include, I mean, everyone said the same thing, it's existing in Harley, you're saying Anyone include Harley's Point in the findings or just leave it out?
No, because that's speculation.
Cause the
But it's,
use of.
that's my.
Yeah, exactly. Is the use of the relevant properties will not change or finds no adverse effect on so I just said cause the use of the relevant properties will not change. The board finds no adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. Okay, number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Ken,
Yes.
Harley. All right, so we all agree self-created. Anyone have any further thoughts on that? For a finding? Nobody? Okay, so I'm gonna say the board finds the alleged difficulty to be entirely self-created in that the need arose from first the construction of a garage that was for the use of the owner of a house on one side of the street. Sorry, I'm trying to think of a concise way to say this. The construction of garage and use of construction adjacent parcel of the garage that was intended for the use of the owner of the house on the opposite side of the street. At the time, both parcels currently both parcels are owned by the applicant who now wishes to sell the property across the street while retaining ownership of. Okay, so finding the board finds the alleged difficulty to be entirely self-created and that the need arose from first the construction on an adjacent parcel of a garage intended for the use of the owner of the house on the opposite side of the street. Is that actually?
Is that true? Did you construct the garage?
It's not, they're not retaining the use of the garage as much as they are the property that the garage is on.
Well, so it's not, currently both parcels are owned by the applicant, now wishes to sell the property across the street while retaining ownership and use of.
Yeah. And the property that the garage.
Of the garage and the land where the garage sits. No, that's good. Okay, so we didn't come to a resolution on question number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
Now we're going back to it.
I mean, I think factually there just are other
But I can't tell you exactly what they are. I mean, I'm sure there's endless number of opportunities to do something else, but
One is leave it the way it is.
Right.
They don't need one, I can say.
Yeah, exactly. The option is to leave it just the way it is, Trey.
So that would be yes.
But does that address the benefits?
I mean, it's like, yeah, the benefit is sell and have the garage, then you have to somehow retain the garage while selling. If the benefit is just the garage, then there's no.
Can I interject something?
We'll allow it, I guess.
Well, I mean, just, I don't know if you've been to the area or seen the actual street, but the vernacular of the garage itself matches my house. It's like an old white farmhouse. The other property, which is a short-term rental property, this grandfather that we have to do. When I sell it, it won't be grandfathered anymore. I assume it will not be a short-term rental property, and it should probably be good for the neighbors. Because there wouldn't be cars going up to that house. And in terms of feasibility, which I think is the question here, I actually am in real estate and I'm an attorney. And I know like selling a property with these kinds of conditions will be a serious impact. It's not a very common thing to sell a property, a house with a garage that's leased on the property next door. So it would be pretty, I would imagine, close to impossible for me then to sell the property, which has no use of the garage because it's uphill. It doesn't look like the garage, and it's very far away from the house, that house itself, whereas 50 feet or so from the shore.
Just to address that comment, I mean, I appreciate that it would be difficult and unusual, but I do not think it would be unfeasible in today's market at a certain price point. I'm very familiar with the property area, and I do not think that at a certain price point, there would be any difficulty selling the property to somebody willing to forego the use of a garage to the neighbor. And yes, I acknowledge it would be difficult, but at the right price point, probably
Right,
still
it
being
would
profitable,
severely
considering that you
impact.
bought it at a tax sale, as you said, and have been using it for a short-term rental. So you know, for what it's worth, I think that it could be difficult, but not impossible.
The question, we can't
Yeah, we can't
consider
really-
financial burden or profit.
Okay, so are we coalescing around, yes, that there is another way they could, it's like, I almost want to say that there's like two benefits they're seeking, the sale and use of the garage. Each of those could be, there's other options for each of
There are
those.
other
And then
options.
together, while we recognize that it's difficult, we could think
One option.
so we're gonna say yes. Say the applicant is seeking two intertwined benefits. One is the continued use of the garage, which was built for the applicant's use and was constructed in a manner which matches the applicant's residence. The other benefit is to sell the property across the street. Separately, whether of these benefits could be achieved by either leaving the situation as it presently is or relinquishing the use of the together. The situation is more difficult. However, the board believes Options such as encumbering the property to be sold. Its garage are feasible, exist and are feasible. Feasible but difficult. Okay, so the applicant is seeking two intertwined benefits. One is the continued use of the garage, which was built for the applicant's use and was constructed in a manner which matches the applicant's residence. The other benefit is to sell the property across the street. Separately, either of these benefits could be achieved easily by either leaving the situation as it presently is or relinquishing the use of the garage. Together, the situation is more difficult. However, the board believes that options such as encumbering the property could be sold with a long-term lease of the garage exist and are feasible.
Right. To me, feasible means convenient, like, what's the definition of feasible?
The court,
Possible
yeah,
is
with
possible.
the Department of State guidance is just like,
Is there a definition of feasible? Like,
all of this is kind of left up to the common understanding of the board.
okay,
So they don't define it super clearly. Also, none of these questions individually are binding on the decisions.
okay,
But feasible, as this board has interpreted it, is like, there's other ways you could do it. And like possible, like,
well, leaving it as is an option for everyone applying to it for variance, right?
yeah, for sure. And it's saying you have a benefit, and then is there another way other than a variance to get the benefit? So like, I think if it was like, well, the other way to do it would be 18 steps, each of which is difficult, we'd probably say that's not feasible. Doing something that would limit financial gain is totally feasible in the eyes of the guidance that we have from the state. So it's like, yeah, we're not even supposed to think about money.
The whole pretty consensus with that, or anybody that disagrees? Never really
With what, I'm sorry.
with this question. We all agree that there is a feasible way, or
There is other way.
Yes, I have no disagreement with.
Okay, so now we're at the end where we just have to decide what we want to do. So to review, on the first question, whether an undesirable change, we said no. Whether there's another feasible path, we said yes. Whether the variance is substantial, we said no. Whether the variance will have an adverse impact, we said no. Whether the difficulty was self-created, we said yes. So on, just summing up those questions, there's 3 that sort of point in the direction of granting the variance, and there's 2 that point away from the variance. Does anyone have like summary feelings or thoughts on this?
I would just start to say that, to me, the more significant factors are the lack of any change in the character of the neighborhood and the consensus that it was not a substantial change. And to me, those outweigh the fact that it's self-created. Almost every variance that comes before us is self-created. And the alternative, although feasible, there are cases in which we could draw a line on feasible alternatives and deny a variance on that basis alone. But I don't think this is one of them.
Harley?
I agree with what Ken says.
I'd add to that. I mean, the fact that the garage was built with the complete intent of being part of the house that's there, and all they're trying to do is retain that. So yeah, I agree, Ken, 100%.
Well, computer, at least for now, has
Revitalized?
come back and
It got
cooperate.
jealous, it got jealous.
So you should keep that open. All right, well, I think I do not agree with everyone, but don't want to be too argumentative about it. I think for me, there's two things that kind of are stuck in my craw a little bit. One is I'm a little, feels like there's a little bit of a backdoor path into getting something that otherwise wouldn't be possible. So you have, property across the street, a garage is constructed, right? Like if this garage didn't already exist, you would never make a parcel that looked this way. Like, I don't think this board would consider it. I don't think the planning board would consider it. I don't think the applicant would consider it. So you have like this situation where you're stacking all these contingencies. And now we're in a situation where it's like, well, because of this thing that already happened and because of this other thing that already happened, now we're like this thing that would on its face seem unreasonable before it was done. It like kind of looks more reasonable in the rearview mirror. So like that's a little stuck in my craw. Like I don't like the path that we got here. And I think that's part of why the substantiality question for me comes out differently than for others. And then the other thing is just, it does still have to go to the planning board and they will have their say on this. But I also feel that the two sides of the road situation, like, even though this narrowest version of the question that we're asked is about the bulk lot size, like I think we're on bulk lot size nonconformity, we're netting out to 0. But I think like the way that we're at that net 0 is like, it's like a worse version of 0 than what was there before. And the only thing for me that kind of speaks against that is the existing conditions, which I also don't love how we got there, which was just like, it's like, I don't know. It'd be like if I wanted to build a warehouse or I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just like, I don't like the situation, and a little bit it's fuzzy, but the two things that feel concrete are that the path to it was this kind of irregular path. And then the second is just that even though the net nonconformity is staying the same, that it's like the configuration of that nonconformity is less desirable for the town in the sense that we now have a lot that's spanning two sides of the street. We now have a garage where someone's got to cross the street to get to it. Like, I understand that that was already what was happening, but like, it's like we're formalizing something that was informal and it like wasn't great when it was informal, but it's like worse to me when it's formal.
You know when the garage was built?
Yeah, a couple years ago, we built it, what?
Must be like 8 or so years ago, and approved by the town.
Yeah.
Filed.
Yeah, you got to just like a normal building permit for a
Yeah.
garage.
No,
Which is
it was-
appropriate.
It was built on the current zone. Or the zoning was prior to them being revised now.
But that review would have had no view of the,
It's not, my point is if the building were in place prior to zoning
Oh.
consideration, then we have a different factor involved. It's not because it becomes moot because we know it was built within 8 years.
I mean, I think I'd like if maybe a proposal to this board is there's how we write. Like, it seems like everyone's inclined to grant it, so I'm not gonna continue to argue against it.
To be honest with you, I thought we were still considering these 5 questions, not whether or not to grant
Oh, that's
variance.
yeah, that's where we're at now is what do we want to do on net? Like, I propose that we write this narrowly in that what we're really just approving is that it's like a transfer of nonconformity. It's like we're saying we looked at the question of nonconformity of area and we found that that doesn't change on net, and therefore we approve the lot line adjustment or like we're willing to grant a variance for the area nonconformity
Based on the size of the lots.
based on the size of the lots only. And we could say, we don't have to, I mean, I don't know, our attorney's not sitting here, but like, I'm inclined to kind of leave or even suggest to the planning board, like this does require planning board review and.
Oh, absolutely. That would be.
But like, maybe we just like take it really, really narrow and say, the area, you've got two non-conforming lots, you still end up with two non-conforming lots. We're okay with that. And like not say anything about, just like not address the use situation. And Ken, you're the only, what do you think about that?
Well, generally in the law, there's a strong admonition to decide only what you need to.
Right. And all we have to decide here is, are we okay with changing the line such that the area, let me just look quickly at our, the original referral from the code enforcement office, just to see exactly what question they posed to us to make sure that we're fully addressing that.
Maybe we should err on the side of caution and consider how we want to write this up. Consulting the attorney, we have it in 62 days. So just so we don't end up erring on.
You want to like draft it and then not hold off on voting on it until we can consult with our attorney.
Yep. It's because this is an unusual situation.
So
The lot line being adjusted and so now being divided by Baker Road.
yeah, but again, so the CEO referral just says the applicant is requesting an area variance to waive minimum acreage requirement. And the only thing they're flagging is that the parcels are too small.
Right, and that's where the variance needs to be granted.
It's just on
Based on what Ken said, I agree, it should be narrowly to that focus, not to necessarily the fact that there's a garage on there that we're approving. That we agree that we should approve it based on just the lot line adjustment to conforming, non-conforming lots. Not because there's a garage there or anything else. Look at it as though the garage doesn't exist based on that.
Okay. So. Yeah, that's where I get into a little bit of like the logic. It's like if it wasn't for the garage, it'd never be. Okay, so I'm gonna say, so this is draft language. We'll write it and then we want to wait and run it by our attorney. We can do that before we vote on it. I'm gonna say it's granted, and I'll say the does everyone think we want to have Mary Lou take a look before we vote? Because I can be a little hastier in my writing if I know where to do that. No, let's just try to write it correctly. Okay. The applicant or the application was referred to the ZBA by the code enforcement office because the applicants requested lot line adjustment would result in two parcels, both of which fall below the minimum 2 acre lot size required in the zone. The applicant proposes to convey and from one parcel, one on from parcel to another non-conforming parcel. As a result, the net non-conformance of the resulting parcels is the same as exists prior to lot line adjustment. So we just want to say, this board is, I don't know, what do we want to say?
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Okay. So I said, so
We
what,
don't have to follow.
yeah, we don't. Okay, so it is hereby determined by the town of Rochester zoning board of appeals that the request for an variance, for an area variance is granted. The application was referred to the ZBA by the code enforcement office because the applicant's, yeah, requested lot line adjustment would result in 2 parcels, both of which would fall below the minimum 2-acre lot size required in the zone. The applicant proposes to convey land from one non-conforming parcel to another non-conforming parcel. As a result, the net non-conformance of the resulting parcels is the same as exists prior to a lot line adjustment.
Basically, yeah,
Right, so we're saying we're okay with the area.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys want to vote on this, or do you want to run it by Mary Lou? I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Can you fine with it? Okay, someone want to make this motion then?
I'll make the motion and vote on whether or not to.
Well, to vote on granting.
Grant the variance.
Okay,
I'll second it.
10 seconds. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? It's me, I'm opposed. But I'm glad we reached consensus. Basically. Okay, so your variance is granted. We have to fill in a little bit more details just on the paperwork. Just make sure we're referencing all the correct documents and have all the numbers and stuff correct. And we should have it for you, what, on Monday afternoon next week? Monday afternoon next week. So Jasmine will email you when we've got a copy. And then I'm sure you already know this, but you've also still got to go to the planning board.
Plan that, like,
Yeah, you can start that now. You don't have to wait.
okay,
Gotta fill the list up again first.
okay, I'll follow up with there. All right,
All right,
thanks,
thanks
guys,
a lot.
appreciate everything.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So I put this in
Yes,
this
some of
folder.
the things.
I'll make sure that it's shared. I think I showed it. It's in the folder and then
I'll let you know.
you'll just, yeah, go through and fill in all the stuff on the top. Okay, great. So our next application is Al Human. Come on down.
Right here.
Fight the Ursula.
You saying what you wanted to say here, man?
What was I gonna say? I don't know. I'm just kidding. Maybe you know, I don't know. Okay, so quick refresher for everyone on the board. We've got this application. It's a home under construction, but like pretty far under construction on Boyce Mill Road. It got flagged in like November as needing a area variance for a setback for the carport portion of the home. At our last meeting, I guess your architect was here. We had questions for the architect. A lot of it was about timeline of when all these building permits got issued, because one of the things this board was concerned about was like, how did this get so far in the construction process with permits and approvals, if there was a setback issue? So we went over that. We had some conversation about exactly how to calculate setbacks and where those should start and end, and just exactly how much variance was required in order for basically the status quo to be permitted. And we asked for some additional information from the applicant, which was provided to us in the form of a sketch and then an email that had some measurements. And those two things are in our folder. And that's basically just confirming it was measurements from both the carport, it was all from the carport, and then to the edge of the road, to the center of the road, And then, various calculations follow from that. So you're just filling in with actual measurements, some of the geometry. And then there's also a sketch that shows how those measurements line up. It's a not to scale sketch. And then just today, we also got just because it came from the code enforcement officer, we put it in the folder, just kind of an update saying that it still doesn't, because we had questions about the right of way and exactly where the setback came from. They sent us a letter clarifying how they were calculating setback. And it sounds like what they're saying is you 47 feet from center line is where they're saying is the setback. So it's 12 feet from the center line of the road, because they're saying it's a 14-foot wide road. Plus they're saying a 5-foot town right of way on either side. And then so if you take that 5 foot, you add it to half of 24, that's 12 plus 5, which is 17. And then you add 35 to that. So that's not right. Sorry, 14-foot wide road. So it's 7 plus 5 is 12. And then you add 35 to that, you get 47. So they're saying 47 feet from the center line. And then if we look at the drawings provided, what they're saying is the edge of the carport is 54 feet 7, I think, inches. Measurements from whatever. I think it's 54 feet 7 inches from
To the house, from the.
to the house. And the carport was, what's that? Yeah, sorry, I'm just like,
You want the Sam? I have the.
yeah,
He's looking at it
I'm looking at it, but
Stuck.
I'm just trying to like everyone's numbers, the arithmetic in my brain. Okay, so you're saying it's 40 feet, right, from the center of the road to the edge of the carport. That's that second number. And then what code enforcement is saying is it should be 47. So that's how they're saying 7 foot.
I think we asked for 8.
Yeah, and we
fixed it.
we'll go through that. So we scheduled this last time for a public hearing. So notice was sent out. It was posted in the paper. But before we can do that, we have to type it for seeker. This is also a type 2 action because it's a variance to a setback, which is, as we learned from Barry the other week, that is a type 2. So I move that we type this as a type 2 action, which then requires no further review. Got a second for that? Harley seconds. Will you do a roll call on that?
Chair Jarowski,
In favor?
Mr. Fisher, Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Haugen,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Okay, and then I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All right, I'll second it then, and all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Is there anyone here who has anything to say about this? Looks like no. Going once, going twice. Did we receive any written correspondence? Okay, I'm gonna move that we close the public hearing. For the second for that.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Okay, public hearing is closed. So I had one more question that I just wanted to make sure I was totally clear on, before we go to the next step, which is hopefully making a decision on this, and I think I asked this last time, but I was just having it was stuck in my brain to make sure. But everything in the code enforcement determination for this references a permit, zoning permit 23 666, but the building permits that were granted don't have that number. So it's like, my understanding of what happened is the same drawings were submitted initially, like back in whatever, spring or whatever. Everything was approved. Those are the same drawings that we now have that show it shows the carport on there. Okay. And then at some point in the fall, somehow it got flagged as, hey, maybe this doesn't meet setback. And then you were asked to apply for a new building permit.
Mhm.
So what was that timeline? Because there's like a new permit that gets denied. Sorry.
So he came to the site,
Mhm.
spoke to someone else, and then I spoke to him and he said that we needed to talk to you guys.
So yeah, there's a permit application dated on November 17th, 2023. With, I guess, your signature on it. And that's the permit application 23-666. So that is the one that was the zoning permit application, not the building permit, but that
Yeah,
zoning permit, that was after.
Right.
And it came about because code enforcement came to the site and was like, hey, wait a second. Okay. But okay, great. That clarifies for me. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't like some other building permit that was like waiting in the wings or somehow. And never. So this was like, they said, hey, will you reapply because they were like, it doesn't meet setback. So you're going to need a variance, and the way to get you to a variance is you just have to do another zoning permit.
yes.
Okay. That clarifies it for me. Anyone on the board have any other questions?
Accessories, one of those that had to be on the house, correct?
Accessory,
Uh,
like garages, you mean? Yeah. Yeah.
As long as they're attached, they can be in front of the house. Because I know if they're not attached, they can't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that also wasn't flagged, so.
They can overlook.
Right. Anyone else have any questions?
Are we doing the variance? Looking at the variance based on 7 feet or 8 feet? Is that
Well, I think that's actually something we need to talk about because I don't want to be, here's my concern. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I don't think that what code enforcement is saying in their letter is right. I think they're miscalculating the variance because we looked at this last time. We looked at what the town law says. And it's a bigger variance that's required. And my concern is not that this code enforcement office is gonna come down and say, oh no, it actually should have been 12 feet when they're saying it's 7. My concern is that 20 years from now, y'all go to sell the house, someone's looking at this and it gets flagged by a new code enforcement officer, like some attorney is like, hey, this doesn't have a variance that's appropriate. The variance is for 7 feet, it should have been for 15. So I think we should do the calculations based on the way we were reading the code, which is all roads are 50 feet wide, and you start counting from 25 feet from the center line, which isn't that different than what they're saying. Code enforcement is saying, sorry, let me go back to that. Sorry. Computer is not my friend today. Code enforcement is saying that the edge of the setback is 47 feet. They're at 40 feet. And the way they got it is they said half the width of the road, which they're saying is 7 feet plus 5, which gets you to 12. And then they're saying plus 35. Right. And what my understanding is that it's 25 feet from the center line of the road plus 35, which is 60 feet, which means they need a 20 foot. And that's just like such a big difference.
That
That,
notes, that's the exact numbers that I can,
yeah,
to make that happen
20
based
feet.
on 25 feet.
We
Yeah.
did it two different ways when we worked on
Yep.
this the other day, and we got 7, and then we got 21.
That's
Doing it
exactly
your
right.
way and doing it the way that code enforcement does it.
yeah. So I think what we probably want to do is say a bigger number
Not on
based on the math that we're saying and the measurements that we have. I think we may also want to just say that we're also granting or denying based on present conditions, which, and this is how we're doing our. Because, you know, roads shift a little bit over time. I think we want to be like clear, because it's not a situation where someone's asking to build something and we need to like tell them exactly where we're approving. This is like something is built and we're saying continue building it, or do you need to do something else?
Well, the only thing that's built to retain the wall.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no foundation
There's
or
no structure.
footings or anything like that.
Don't we have to do a variance as deny or approve as if the building is not there?
Mhm. We could say as the plans are presented. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? See Ken's reading our printout of our code. Okay. Okay, so is everyone ready to work through our 5 questions? All right, great. Okay, so first question, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of an area variance. Harley.
Not the only house in that particular section with the garage in the front, but it is the closest to the road. I'm tempted to go with, yeah, it's gonna change what that road is. It's on that turn right there. So you're gonna see the garage more than you're gonna see the house.
Ken?
I'm not sure, let me pass for now.
Charlie?
I have,
No comment?
I have the chance to get up there.
Okay.
I see that it is, it's gonna have mild impact.
Ken?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. I mean, I'm comfortable agreeing with Harley, like it's a new house, it is closer in. It's a little tight in there. Like, I don't know if it's undesirable, but it's certainly a change and I would say like, I'm comfortable saying yes, but kind of just qualifying that as like, it's a house doing a normal house thing. It's just gonna be closer to the road than the other ones. Still.
Oh, no, I'll defer to your judgments on this one. I haven't looked at it specifically other than the drawings.
Charlie, are you comfortable with that? And say yes, but it's,
Sure.
we can say board finds that variance for a garage in this location will be a change in the neighborhood as the garage will be closer to the road than the garages of nearby houses are. Road, which could be desirable. However, the construction of an attached garage in this manner is,
Actually, it's not a garage, it's a carport.
Correct.
what's the difference between a garage and a carport?
A garage is a fully enclosed structure.
Oh, this is
so just
open,
like a
yeah.
pass. through.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So here is no wall.
But
Wall, because it's against that.
there's, that's what it close to the future. Then someone for carport.
Rock.
That's true. I put a door on.
I got one. This ain't closed in now.
Carport in this manner is common and generally accepted in. Okay, so I just said, the board finds that the granting of variance for a carport in this location will be a change in the neighborhood as the carport, not garage, will be closer to the road than the nearby houses are to the road, which could be viewed as undesirable. However, the construction of a carport in this manner is common and generally accepted. Number two, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Harley?
I ultimately, yes,
Yeah.
because you could put the garage on, but the carport on the side.
You
Yes.
can't, it's on a hill.
That I'm a builder, you can, it just requires a lot more fill and everything else. Feasibly, you could, but it would be great expense.
I agree with that. There are alternatives that could be sought, but they're not necessarily practical.
It can be moved in, so you don't need to variance, so.
There's not nothing that's moving in. If you drove by, I know, I went by, there's definitely, that's one of the things I looked at was.
Narrow at the road.
Narrower, but even then it's still, and then it's an unsafe, it just wouldn't be a correct thing.
Ken, you got anything?
Nothing for the past months.
All right, so we're gonna say, yes. So we're gonna say the board finds that the applicant could potentially construct a carport in a different and perhaps less convenient location.
Might want to put like much less.
Yes, but we were just very broad in our application of feasible. Perhaps much less significantly.
It would be a much higher expense. but-
Okay.
Ain't go by money either.
Right.
Okay, whether the requested area variance is substantial. I mean, I'll start with this, like, especially by our math, it is big. It's 20 feet in a 35-foot setback, which is big.
Yeah.
I don't really see any way around that.
Percentage wise, it's ask.
Anyone have a reason why it's not substantial? Okay, so I'm gonna say, as the board reads the applicable code for setbacks, this, the requested variance requires 20 feet variance. Okay, 35. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of your district. Anyone got anything on that? No negative impacts. physical. Five, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration is relevant but not binding on the
Yes.
granting variance.
Yes, it was.
You think it's self?
I say no, given the fact that they originally submitted plans. This is where it's not up to us to make sure that plans are properly reviewed before granting it. If they were granted the variance or granted the ability to place that house, right, determined to come to us, and then after that was determined. So they didn't create the problem. It's actually building inspector that created the problem by recognizing this error.
I'm 100% with
Ken?
I tend to agree with Craig.
Yeah. I agree with Clayton too. I do see Charlie's point though, like you could catch it when you're drawing your plans, I guess, and not ask for them, but I think in general, I agree with Clayton and Harley, like this got, I suspect that this applicant, if this had gotten flagged at the initial stage, would have looked and not spent money, doing excavation and construction. And it's like, at this point, the variance is, yeah, like the need is created. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like not epistemological, it's ontologically a little muddy, but I think we all agree that there was no opportunity really for the applicant to pursue other feasible alternatives, given the timing.
Reason I was the carport on the original.
Right, yeah.
It was, yeah.
And this pier, the one that's highlighted, that's already poured.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
It's almost as if they changed the rules,
Halfway through.
which is the classic definition of a situation in which it's
Not self-created.
not so. It's one of the few instances.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So we're gonna say, no, it was not self-created.
Yeah.
Someone got word, what's the right wording for this? We just want to say the applicant, provided drawings that were to scale and accurate. Submitted accurate plans for this carport, which were approved and inspected by the, which were approved and for which permits were granted before construction began. After construction was significantly underway, the code enforcement office requested that the applicant submit a new zoning permit for the carport, which was then denied because of a setback violation. This board finds that because the initial plans were approved prior to commencing construction and no facts changed in the interim, the difficulty was not created by the applicant, but rather, we want to go so far as to say that the difficulty was created by code enforcement, or is that too strong?
There's no.
No, you just say,
Just not self-created.
Right.
Okay, so I said, the applicant submitted accurate plans for this carport which were approved and for which permits were granted before construction began. After construction was significantly underway, including the piers to support the carport, the code enforcement office requested that the applicant submit a new zoning permit for the carport, which was then denied because of a setback violation. This board finds that because the initial plans were approved prior to commencing construction and no facts changed in the interim, the difficulty was not created by the applicant. Sounds fine. Okay, Yeah.
There wasn't an actual violation or a stop work order
no,
submitted, correct? All right.
should I say that? Or no? It's not.
No, I just wanted to
Make
make
sure,
sure
yeah.
because.
We did ask that last time, was like, was there any?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of our 5 questions. To summarize, we said, the first question, whether it could produce an undesirable change, we said yes, but we did kind of soft walk that one. Number 2, whether the benefit could be achieved by another way, we're saying yes. The board finds the applicant could potentially construct a carport in a different and perhaps significantly less convenient location. Do we want to say something there that like,
Be unreasonable.
However, yeah, it's like, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but it's like, that would have been more feasible prior to the approval.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, that almost makes me want to say no at this point.
Well, it's still.
Right, we have to
there's
consider
still
it.
options. But
So, however, I'm just gonna add a however, since the original plans were approved, the applicant did not pursue alternatives prior to construction. Is that,
Sam, I don't know if we have the setbacks on either side, if we were to,
oh, you might not have setbacks.
we don't have the setback on the side.
The tight lot.
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
super tight.
It's not,
And you can't go behind because.
but
Because there's a garage
It's
lot.
really-
Well, so I think what we can say is like the board finds that the applicant could potentially construct a carport in a different and perhaps significantly less convenient location. However, since the original plans were approved, the applicant did not have any reason to pursue alternatives prior to construction.
shouldn't consider.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you
So we're
can
saying-
put it,
Yeah,
I don't think you
there's-
need to, because I think the last sentence is what comes under the other question. In other words,
Yeah.
I would just balance them out and thinking about it. Yes, you have substantiality, but it was not self-created.
Right, yeah,
And I would give great weight
right,
to
right.
that, to that.
Not
concept.
self-created in this. Yeah.
But
Yeah, so then the next one, whether it's substantial, we did say yes, because by our math, it's like 20 feet. Whether it will have an adverse impact on the neighborhood, environmentally, we said no. And then whether it was self-created, we said no. So just to summarize, we had potential undesirable change, potential feasible alternative, substantiality, but then we had no adverse impacts and not self-created. So then we have to decide what we want to do at the end here, which I'm happy to start, but I'll let someone else start. I think we should grant this variance. I think, for me, I think just what Ken said, like, because this was not self-created in the use of this board, it's just like, that's so strong that it's hard for me to even consider like what alternatives could exist or whether it's, what's the first one? If it's a potential negative impact on the character. It's just like, they did everything they're supposed to do. They did not create this problem. They didn't have an opportunity to even look for alternatives. So for me, that's just so strong that I couldn't in good conscience.
Which setback are we going with?
I think we should say 20 or maybe even a little more, I think maybe there's a way, I mean, Carly's point that we have to, what's that? 21. Well, we can do it all together here one more time, just to make sure. And we can also put a note, say like,
Should be based on the 25-foot center line.
how we counted it.
Yep, absolutely. Because that road can change in the future, and it has.
Maybe we could say like also based on the present center line. And we can cite the part, you've got it open where it talks about setbacks. Does everyone agree with that? We just gotta write it. Does anyone have any dissent or points of? quibble? No, okay.
They didn't cause this.
Okay, so hereby determined by the town of Rochester, the request for an area variance is granted. The board,
I have a second on that.
oh, well, we didn't vote on it yet, we're just writing. The board
How do you feel,
finds,
Charlie? I got something to say.
so what do we want to say, just like, we want to say that because the board finds that this was not self-created, that is such a powerful factor in consideration that
Outweighs it.
that outweighs any other potential.
That also covers us in the future for anything of this sort, because it's so rare that this happens.
Was not self-created.
20 years, I think this is probably the second time I've ever heard of it.
This factor carries so much weight that it overrides any potential
I can't remember yesterday.
negative impacts or concerns about.
I'm with you. With what's going on in my house and stuff.
I hear that.
Okay, so I'm just saying, because the board finds that because the situation was not self-created, this factor carries so much weight that it overrides any potential negative impacts or concerns about substantiality. So then we would just want to say,
Can we add reasonable impacts?
sorry, overrides any potential negative, reasonable,
Right,
reasonable
Or
negative?
reasonable.
Okay.
In other words, they can't, just because they have a setback, they can't put a 50-story building in.
Got it. Or concerns about substantiality. The board grants a front yard
32 feet.
variance of, so we'll calculate it, but I'm gonna just, for now, I'm gonna put in 20 feet.
Which could be changed to 21, if that's the number guys there, yeah.
This number
20 plus.
was determined
Minus.
by using the following method.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the section of the code?
140-12A.
It's a reference.
Town of Rochester zoning code 140-12-A.
Yeah.
-12A. States that quote, front yards shall on the edge of.
I'm gonna use that voice out there.
Soon to be 50 feet. Within all cases. On the
Corner, I never remember those.
Yeah.
Falls.
Very good.
Which place?
Okay, very good.
Many years.
What's that? What are you guys saying?
Chatting about.
From the center line of Bourse Mill Road, the edge of the right of way is 25 feet. And the setback is 35 feet from this.
That's like falling down.
Total, the
I'll be in my office.
distance from the edge of the setback to the center of Boyce Mill Road is required to be 60 feet. Measurements taken by the applicant at the request of the board, indicate that the existing pier for the carport is 40 feet from the center line of this is 20 feet less than the 60 feet required. Therefore, a variance of 20 feet is needed. Okay. Okay, great. I think that's all we need to say. So I said, it's hereby determined that the request for area variance is granted. The board finds that because this situation was not self-created, this factor alone carries so much weight that it overrides any potential negative or reasonable impacts or concerns about substantiality. The board grants a front yard setback variance of 20 feet. This number was determined by using the following method. Town of Rochester zoning code 140-12A states that, quote, front yard shall be measured from the edge of the road right of way, which shall be assumed to be 50 feet in width in all cases where unknown. According to this method, the board calculated that from the center line of Boyce Mill Road, the edge of the right of way is 25 feet, and the setback is 35 feet from this point. In total, the distance from the edge of the setback to the center of Boyce Mill Road is required to be 60 feet. Measurements taken by the applicant at the request of the board indicate, or not indicate, show that the existing pier for the carport is 40 feet from the center line of the road. This is 20 feet less than the required 60 feet, therefore a variance of 20 feet is needed. And granted, right, is needed and granted. If further measurements or gradual shifting, I don't know if we can write it down. We're just not gonna take it. I think we're good.
That's good.
I was gonna be like, if further shifting of the road, like,
Oh,
but I
man.
think we're
No.
fine. We're saying this is what it was on the day we granted it, this is where it is. Okay. Is everyone okay with this?
Yeah, one thing you might add is, just trying to think of this, like, the variance should be granted to represent the
Present conditions.
existing structure,
Yes.
the existing
Not
foundation.
future.
Okay.
In
So
the event that there are any discrepancies in the
is
actual
further granted such that it allows the current, what was the language you said?
measurements. So I understand the current
The
foundation
concrete piers that are currently
in place.
On site and on plan.
piers that are already installed.
Mhm.
It's not a pier, it's a wall. There's a deck.
Okay, sorry, so I need to now replace all of this.
Sorry. Even in the application and everything, it says wall.
Just let them think the whole time it's pure.
Yeah, thanks.
You know?
I think I put that in one of these
Yeah,
above
you
ones
have.
too.
You did.
You can do a
They
global
mixed
search.
everything.
You can do a global search.
Yeah, I'm bad at that. It's just one other place. Okay. The variance is further granted such that it allows the concrete wall that is already installed. And what you said something else.
Oh, I said, irrespective of whether or not there are any minor differences in how the actual measurement. is
Any
calculated.
minor variations of measurement.
Or maybe you
want
can take out minor. and say variations. I have a claw in my throat over this notion of the 50 feet being the presumed width of the road.
Especially.
Well, the presumed width of the right of way.
Presumed width of the.
Which,
Yeah.
it doesn't, the problem is when it comes to highways.
Anyway, this is.
Yeah.
That's just a law thing. You just don't like the law.
Well, it's not actually a law, that's the problem. it's only a law for state roads, and even state roads, they
Right,
vary.
and this is, really only for us calculating.
I know. It's,
Okay,
boosted.
Yeah.
are we good to, does anyone have any edits to this language? No. Okay, I'm gonna move
Take it
that.
all out, start over.
I'm gonna make the motion that we approve this variance as written and read. Second, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, great. So you've got your variance. I think we'll have a written end of day Monday, probably we'll have it, like, finished version of it, but
Oh, cool.
But it's in
You can
effect
send me,
now.
It's whenever you can find the come down and
I'll come
sign
in on
it.
Monday. I can come in on Monday.
I can finish this in 5 minutes in the morning.
Maybe.
We'll email you when it's ready, but it'll be signed by the end. But you're good to go.
Can
It
you
has,
go to-
I can't do that. you know.
So-
Yeah.
Or loads.
Yeah, just go off grid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks, you
Have a
guys.
good night.
Appreciate it. I'll be in touch. Yeah. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, got that. Okay, anyone need a quick break? I need to go pee really quick before our last agenda item. I hope that wasn't TMI, sorry. So I'll be right back, but do you guys want to take a 3-minute break?
Yes.
All right, let's adjourn for 3 minutes. We'll be back at 7:45 with.
You have seen Justin on?
Yeah,
How's he doing?
The issue.
He's holding it together pretty well.
It's the measurements on-
She's still, she's doing good, but it's like surreal for her. They're actually gonna bring a dumpster over to the house and start getting.
So it really was
Yeah.
not coded.
Yeah, so they're gonna get rid of like
It's for assessors.
tons of stuff. But he's got
Boy,
magazines going back. to
it's
40
very,
years.
very interesting. You could sit
Yeah,
with
crazy.
talking heads and
Yes.
raise
Yeah.
that important
Justin,
questions. We are,
finish that.
um,
I thought I
stand
said
on
it.
it.
Thought I
All the
said
parts
it.
are
I know.
Yeah, everything is.
Brand new motor.
So-
And one vehicle is pulled up.
What he's gonna do is he's gonna pull the Ranger out of it, because he still has the Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually gonna get that fixed. It's got a blown head.
Right.
And in the meantime, he's gonna put he's pulling everything out of the wagon lane and bringing it back to the house, so. But he's, you know, it was, something that was lacking. Just his lungs wasn't absorbing it.
I guess the only-
Fluid in them.
The only other thing is still, somebody did receive a vote.
Strokes, but he,
Kind of, sort of, wasn't really.
Yeah. They had him in Golden Hill for 32 days and they never gave him water bottles.
Oh, no.
So he was like retaining water really good, which made it a tick. Yeah, made it a lot worse.
Justin got a good way.
They're working on it.
Good.
I mean, they're, you know. It's a shame.
What?
Throwing it out there.
First map versus the ones on there for the measurements, they're different.
Where's the map? Where is
It's in
that?
the board.
It's supposed to be together.
It's in the board.
You know, you slide me that.
Nope.
It was.
This one?
It wasn't. No, one thing, six.
No, it does seem.
They just measured.
I thought where, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like,
Minimum.
yeah, it's not like you're on. a
They mark
flat
the
vacant lot.
Yeah.
You're like, there's a hill.
It does look 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why they were doing Yeah.
But the map is accurate. The like location is accurate.
They do it.
Oh my
They must
God,
be doing
if something happens.
Okay.
I keep turned down now.
When I worked for the highway department, we float up and we go across the box culverts that were flagged at like 3 tons.
Yeah.
One time I was just being Maybe. And I'm like, I'm not going that way. I'm going all the way around. It's an extra like 45 minutes. Hey, watch this shit. I'm like, be on the bridge. I don't care. If I fall through, I'm liable.
I can get hurt, or get killed.
What we have to realize with bridges is each lane is 3 dollars. So
That bridge.
it doesn't matter. It's still a 2-lane bridge.
So then you'd be 6-ton across.
Technically, yes. And you still have 15% on top of what that is. The 42nd Street Bridge was there when the bridge crew, they grabbed a sledgehammer, they hit the outside beam. It went through the beam, the guy let go of the sledgehammer, hit the second beam, went through that beam, hit the third beam.
I looked before. Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Come back, let's reconvene
Yeah.
our meeting at 7:45. You guys wanna come on down? So this is, for those at home watching, this is Friendly Acres. This is, we're continuing to work through this one. Basically, the most concise summary is that we've got a vacant parcel of land which is associated with the home. The vacant parcel is owned by a homeowners association. The applicant wants to have a recreational vehicle, homemade recreational vehicle parked on the vacant parcel. And that requires a variance because since it's a structure that someone could potentially live in, it comes under New York State building code, which makes it a structure, and it's therefore an accessory structure. And our town does not generally permit the erection or location of accessory structures in the absence of a principal structure. And because the parcel of land where the RV is parked is a vacant parcel, it doesn't have a principal structure, that gets us to the need for a variance. So we finally got all that cleared up, I don't know, 2 meetings ago. The applicants have now reapplied, asking for a variance from the prohibition on accessory uses in the absence of principal uses. So now we're back. So thank you guys for resubmitting the application. This all looks basically correct. Does anyone on the board have any additional questions?
The RV still gonna be parked in the same spot that it's been basically forever.
Yeah.
The things, yeah,
Yeah.
the association's bylaws say that nobody can just park it, a recreational vehicle or a boat or, boat trailer or anything like that without it being in a designated area. So that area has to be designated, and that is the only designated area that we have. We don't have any other areas where anything can be parked.
Now, on this, it says that recreational vehicle is to be used as a living space.
Yeah, I don't,
I gotta update that.
well, but I think,
Guys.
Our application, it says
Right,
storm.
that's strictly stored.
Yeah, I think
wanted to
we-
make sure that you're still on the same sheet of music there, that somebody's not gonna be living in this thing. Well, it's a park.
yeah, I do also think like per the conversation we had with Will from Code Enforcement Office, that it's like, for us, it's the narrow question of, does it, it's just that, can we have an accessory without a principal? And then it would still then require a building permit, and that it sounded like from Will, actually, whether someone's residing or not residing is almost irrelevant, because either way it has to. But yeah, just like that's not, I noticed that too. And then I was like, well, does it even really make a difference? And I was like, oh. Anyone else Ken, you got anything? Oh, were you here for?
I was
the-
not-
No,
wasn't-
I wasn't here for the last one, but.
Do you want to ask it
I wasn't
some
here for that one
questions?
either.
So it doesn't matter whether or not anybody is living in this, because parking a vehicle or using a space to construct an object is deemed to be an accessory use?
Yeah, so the logic, which took us a bit of time to untangle, is that recreational vehicles under New York State Fire Code are included. So any recreational vehicle, whether it's home built or purchased from a manufacturer, has to be built in conformance with New York State Fire and Building. So that's just like a fact. And then, sure.
Yeah, I was just like searching because I was trying to address the part of this bill about the recreational vehicles. And HUD website, they have this whole feeling about recreational vehicles. And it says that recreational vehicles are exempt from the HUD code, fully exempt.
The HUV.
The housing under urban development.
But that's different than New York State Fire and Building Code.
Okay, so it's different.
Yeah. So because it's subject to Fire and Building Code, which is just a state law, anything that's subject to Fire and Building Code, in order to confirm that it's meets the requirements, requires a permit, so that's the mechanism for it to be inspected. And then when you say, well, what kind of structure is it? It's not a principal structure because it's not a campground, it's not a house. It's not a use that's a principal permitted use. It's therefore an accessory use. So parking, even though, so what the town schedule of district regulations says is an accessory use is any use that is customarily accessory to a dwelling. So like parking an RV is a customarily accessory use to a home. Or to any other primary use. So like I have, we all have a neighbor who owns an RV that they take on a road trip every summer and they have it parked there. So that's a customary accessory use. And because it's home built, the test for whether it meets Fire and Building Code doesn't come from the manufacturer, it comes from the constructor.
The registration on this in the title is.
Just for the trailer, but not for the RV.
It's not an actual.
Certificate of compliance with.
Right, but,
So the town, as the enforcement body for New York State Uniform Fire and Building Code, has to have a mechanism for providing an inspection on a home-built RV. And that mechanism is that it requires it's really a zoning permit that it requires, not a building permit. And like, I think technically, probably anyone who parks an RV in their yard should also obtain a zoning permit to provide code enforcement with the opportunity to confirm that that RV meets fire and building.
No.
I think that's what Will said.
No.
I
don't think anyone's asking anyone to do that, but I think technically.
but assuming, I mean, a lawyerly way to approach a question like this is to start off with making findings of fact. And so there's a question of fact as to what is this thing? And it seems like it might matter.
Yeah, so the code enforcement office made a finding of fact that it's an RV, that it's a homemade RV.
Which would be an accessory.
So that's a finding that we already have.
Well, this is, the question is whether or not we're bound by that. And that finding of fact, because I'm not so clear. Anyway, but it may be, unimportant if net, the only difference in this situation from what you were describing earlier is that the relationship between the parcels at Friendly Acres is such that they have, I understand it, a separate community-owned parcel. And were it not for that, there'd be no need for the particular variance that the individual is seeking in this instance. So
you mean if the parcels were larger?
If each individual unit, let's just say, had, a ninth or a tenth or whatever of the common.
Right, then you
Right.
could just park it on there.
There'd be
Right.
next to one of those structures.
There'd be no
You'd
need
be
for.
next to, within that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just like earlier this evening, maybe all we have to decide. Right. Is, are we okay with that?
With this instance of a accessory without a principal, this specific instance of it.
Regardless of what it is, it could be a shed, it
Could
could
be
be
a
a
shed,
camper.
right.
Because somebody else has to do the
Yeah.
what you described,
Still
about
needs
the
a
building permit, all that.
Makes no
That's-
difference to us,
that's-
it's whether or not we allow that ancillary structure or item to be on a piece of property without the primary, which requires the kitchen, septic.
Right.
Yeah, so that's, I think, the only question for us is, and that's what we kind of worked through last time with Will from code enforcement, with Mary Lou. It's like, okay, the variance that's required here is an area variance from the requirement that an accessory use be paired with the principal use.
Right, and last time we were making the point that town of Rochester favors clustered housing.
Right.
You know, so that the fields, the forests, the farmland, whatever is preserved, and it benefits everybody. So we just happen to be clustered housing, and yet everyone in that clustered housing owns that 8 acres that surrounds the clustered housing. So that's what we're looking for, is that.
And then I think also to Ken's just area of question and concern, it's like, in the situation that you described where, say that was evenly divided between individual parcels, right? It would obviate the need for a area variance, but it would not obviate the need for a zoning permit allowing the accessory structure.
But that's not before us right now.
That's not before us. Yeah, we don't have to decide whether they should be granted that permit. We're just saying, are we okay?
Accessory structure, no principal structure.
That's it. In this space and in this specific situation with the arrangement with the, the homeowners association and et cetera. Which is their argument for why it should be okay. It's not just. Carly, you got anything else? Clayton, sorry.
How long ago was the structure or the item put in place? I don't want to call it, I can't.
Umbrella.
So it is.
When was that first put where it is?
2020, so 3 and something years ago.
So it's inside of the current zoning law, it's like the second time tonight. So it falls within the item.
Charlie, you got anything?
No.
Okay.
Now, so. It depends on if it gets granted or not.
Yeah. Does
Yeah, stipulation, I think we should put in if we do grant it.
Does anyone have any, so I think we've been through enough kind of questions, and I think we can schedule this for a public hearing for our next meeting. But I just want to make sure that before we do that, is there anything else that this board wants from the applicants?
Anything else that you can provide us, any other information that we found?
Yeah, we've got a lot.
We got a portfolio.
One thing actually, one thing that you said tonight that I don't think I heard you say before was that you could only do something like this in a designated area,
Right,
and this is in the designated area.
yeah.
How was the area designated? And like, is that written down somewhere? Is there some like map in your bylaws that like, this is the just because that, at least to me, that would show like this was thought of.
Well, it definitely was thought of as far as having an accurate, exact map.
Yeah,
That's the only.
that's
map
it.
that we
Okay.
have.
So when you designated the area, you guys were kind of like
That area.
back over
There
there.
really isn't any other
Okay.
than that.
Yeah, if you find anything that's like even, just this, we had the meeting and it was about this time and this is the, like even something like that. We can't.
Would it be helpful Try to be helpful from, to get like a letter signed by, all the.
Yeah, I don't.
Saying that we designated this
Yeah,
area.
we've got some of that stuff. I think like also like for us, the bylaws and deed restrictions, I mean, like to some extent we have to think about that, but whatever the internal rules isn't really germane to what we have to decide on. But it was just, I think what I was thinking might be germane is if at some point you guys sat down when you were first doing, this filing the plats and everything with the town when it was first created. If there was somewhere on a map that was like, this is a designated area for, like that, to me would at least speak to, before there was even zoning, you guys were anticipating this. Maybe if it's in the bylaws that it needs to be.
It is in the bylaws.
Did we already have
did
another
send you
one?
that paragraph.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's
should have
good.
it. We can send it to you again.
If we've got it.
When were the bylaws drafted?
Pardon?
When were the bylaws drafted? When did we write them?
Before
zoning.
Before my time.
Okay, so it wasn't, in other words, it wasn't land.
That was prior to zoning.
That was,
This
I
whole
would
thing is
say
prior to our
the-
current.
in the late nineties, I would say, is when they were.
It's right there, man.
Yeah. If you have the date and maybe resend that paragraph, because I'm not
Yeah,
totally sure we have it, that way we can just be totally sure. Or the
With
full
that
document and
highlighted.
just tell us which
Yeah.
page to look at. Because that, especially to Clayton's point, that like, especially with prior to zoning, like, we're not here to be unreasonable. And I think, at least for me, what that would show is that when you guys were contemplating this, there was, and you were anticipating this potential use, and when you filed everything with it, it's like, you did this before, I'm making that assumption, that's why the date, I guess, matters.
right,
But
exactly.
if it was before our current zoning, then, and you did this whole thing, and in one way it conforms with our current zoning, but in another way it doesn't, that at least for me are things that I like to do the whole.
Absolutely shows amazing affordable.
Okay, so if the board doesn't have anything else, I'd like to move that we schedule this application for a public hearing at our next meeting. February 15th. Before we do that though, I do want to note, I'm gonna be out of the country February 15th. So that doesn't mean you have to cancel the meeting, but it means that Clay, you'll have to chair it.
Aaron taking you out for Valentine's.
No, we're going to Italy.
Or you can
She's
stay
not
out
leaving
with
there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that sounds good. I'll to be at a meeting. I just want to flag that in case that's a factor for anyone. We can certainly talk before I go away, but I think it's totally fine to schedule it. I just wanted that to not be a last minute surprise.
We may even have an alternate.
Maybe you'll have an alternate who still won't get to sit if long as you still have a quorum. Okay, so I move that we schedule this for a public hearing on February the 15th. For a second, Charlie seconds, everyone in favor? Okay, that motion carries. So public hearing is scheduled. That means that your neighbors will get letters in the mail, probably mostly people who are already in your HOA. And it'll also be in the paper. Yeah.
Surprised.
Cool. So that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
your
sticking
patience.
around. Is there any other? Oh, meeting minutes. Did everyone review meeting minutes? Anyone have any comments? You want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that carries. All right, great. Then let's adjourn and thank everyone for thoughtful and intentional and respectful discussion of all the
All in
issues
favor?
before us. You don't even need a vote on that.
You do.